I will be teaching English 101 at Shoreline Community College. It's an online course, which means that we won't meet in person. So while you will see my face, I may not see your face over the course of the quarter. However, I want to start today with just a little bit of a rundown of the syllabus and the things that you'll be about 10 or 15 minutes. So just a couple notes here. The first day of instruction is officially the 26th of September. There will be a couple assignments due on the 26th because even though it's an online class, I'm going to try and keep us to as much of a regular Monday through Friday schedule. Not to say that you can't do things over weekends, but I really probably won't have anything due on weekends. So October 10th through the 17th of November, drops will show as a W or a withdrawal. Midterms are kind of right in the middle, probably around week 6 or week 7 of the quarter. Last day of instruction is the 7th of December, and your final will be due the 11th of December. And before you get too worried about it, our final will be pretty straightforward. There is no written exam for our course. All you will be doing is turning in a portfolio of your revised essays from the quarter and a reflection letter. So my office hours, in case you do need to get a hold of me, are 10:30 to 11:20 a.m. and by appointment I will be on campus Monday through Thursday. My office is located in the Foss building, which is right next to the pub, top floor, back left corner, room 5319. Feel free to drop by anytime during my office hours. And again, if you do need to meet me at a different time, please let me know and I'll try and arrange that with you as much as possible. I know that especially in an online course, it can sometimes be really nice to actually have a face-to-face with the professor. So the best way to reach me is by email. My email is kover@shoreline.edu. You should also check your email on a regular basis, especially since this is an online class, but most of what I do will be on Canvas. So if I have any real information to impart to the entire class, I will put that up as an announcement. We have a couple course resources this quarter and a couple books that I've asked you to procure. So the first one is Writing with Style, which looks like so. It is a book of short chapters about writing and the writing process that we'll be reading almost all of during this quarter. Please do buy the third edition. There's a chapter in the third edition that does not exist in the second edition. The second thing that I want you to read is The Handmaid's Tale, and I don't have my copy of the book handy right now. It is a novel by Margaret Atwood, and some of you may be familiar with the recent TV show of the same name. We'll be doing our second essay literary analysis about this book and be talking about it as we go. And really allow us to do a close literary analysis and work on those critical thinking and close reading skills. There will also be a variety of quote-unquote handouts that will be available on Canvas as PDFs or Word doc files. And then, of course, videos such as TED Talks and YouTube presentations such as this one. Again, I'm going to try and keep these presentations relatively short, 10 to 15 minutes, which is about the same amount of time that I'd really try and lecture in a course and really know more. You'll need both of those course textbooks as soon as possible, probably by the beginning of week 2. Consult Canvas. I'm making this video a little bit prior to finalizing all of my the reading schedule and assignments for our class, so there will be specifics on Canvas. As far as assignments go, you're going to have some daily assignments, in-class writing assignments or sort of informal writing assignments, reading quizzes or other quizzes, reflections, and those will be due via Canvas. There are going to be some minor assignments, some pre-writing, maybe an intro paragraph, something like that. All of those are also due via Canvas. And then your major assignments. So the major assignments are worth 50 points, and there are 4 of them over the course of the quarter. So the first one that you will be writing is what we call a personal narrative, which is a memoir. It's a story from your life. And I like to start here because it allows you to write about something you're very familiar with, use a little bit more of an informal voice, and really, especially if you haven't written in a while, get used to back into the mindset of writing. The second paper we're going to write is a synthesis essay, which will ask you to take different ideas and synthesize them together. And if you're not sure what that means, don't worry, because we will cover it in depth before the assignment. The third assignment is a rhetorical analysis. You'll read an essay or a couple essays closely, and you'll choose one and basically do kind of a post game or what have you on that essay, and kind of look into how the writer does what they do and what the desired effect is. And the idea there is to learn something from a professional writer. The final piece of writing that we're going to do is going to have a little bit of research to it. It's a persuasive essay, so you'll choose something that matters a great deal to you, and you will bring to bear all of the skills that we've learned this quarter and write something in order to persuade your audience. So, in terms of assignment turn-in, in general, please follow the directions. I try and make my explanations as clear as possible, including why we're doing this specific assignment, what the course objective is that matches up with the assignment, a full description, and then the rubric. Most assignments will be due at 11:59 p.m. via Canvas. If absolutely necessary, you can email me a copy or bring a hard copy by my office. Late assignments. So my policy for late assignments is if you turn in your assignment late, that is within 24 hours of the deadline, you receive a 10% penalty off of the final grade, which is to say I grade the whole assignment first and then deduct 10%. Now, let's say it's 12:03 when your assignment finally submits. I'm not that kind of jerk, so I will not penalize you if you're just a few minutes late. If you turn it in at, say, 12:15 and it's a 5-minute assignment, I will penalize you. So do know that there is some wiggle room, but that's at my discretion. Extension. So inevitably during the quarter, some of you are going to have something that comes up in your lives, whatever that is, and you're going to maybe want an extension, a little bit of extra time with an assignment. You may have an extension if you contact me 48 hours ahead of time, explain your situation, and I grant it. So don't just assume that you can email me and automatically get that extension. I would caution you against asking for extensions if at all possible, because it has a domino effect and it will impact your work on later assignments. There are 6 course outcomes for English 101. In particular, these are the things that Shoreline Community College wants all of you to be able to do successfully when you leave the course at the end of the quarter. As far as I'm concerned, these are the things that I'm making sure that you can do in order to be successful in other classes, including English 102. So the first one is to critically read, analyze, and evaluate information. Again, that's that kind of close reading that we'll be working on, especially with the Handmaid's Tale. The second one is to formulate and express information and ideas. If you cannot clearly communicate your ideas, then your writing is unsuccessful. And so what I want to help you do is really make sure that you can be clear in transmitting those ideas to your reader. Number 3 is to assess the effectiveness of students' communication. So that is your reflection on your work. And that's something that we'll work on at the end of the quarter with a reflection letter. It's a personal letter. You're going to engage in the writing process. And again, you'll hear me reiterate this over the course of the quarter, that writing is recursive. That is, we come around and around and around to it again and again. As a writer, I write many drafts of everything that I work on. I will even maybe write 2 or 3 drafts of an email if it's of significant importance. So I want you to, as much as possible, get away from the idea that a good writer sits down, writes something in 5 minutes, and it's done. Maybe you've done that in the past. Maybe you've gotten an A on work that you've done at the last minute without engaging in the writing process. But that is not necessarily going to serve you well every time you sit down to write. Number 5 is to identify the context of a work, and we're going to work on that especially with the Handmaid's Tale and the rhetorical analysis. That is, we're going to look at when, where, and why a piece was written. And then number 6 is to write to a wide range of audience, and our audience might change slightly for each of the 4 papers, and that kind of depends on what you want to accomplish with a piece of writing. Okay, so course structure in terms of Canvas. You're on Canvas now, otherwise you wouldn't be watching this video. The course, as you may have noticed, is divided into modules. I've created a module for each week, and my goal is that when it comes to that particular week, week 3, week 4, whatever week it is, that you can go to that module and get all of the information that you need to be successful for that week. So that includes reading, presentations such as this one, discussions, reading quizzes, assignments and assignment descriptions. So all of that should be there, and I will add a little to-do note for you so that you know that you need to do that work. Let's talk briefly about reading quizzes. So reading quizzes, especially since we don't have a daily meeting class, the reading quizzes are a way for me to assess your understanding of the text. And if I want to be super pessimistic, just to make sure that you're reading it. Now, I don't know you all, but I'm going to assume that you would actually do the reading. I just want to make sure that you're reading it closely and really getting everything that you can out of it. That reading, those reading quizzes rather, are generally a mixture of multiple choice questions and short answer questions. There will only be one right answer for the multiple choice questions, and the short answer questions should be 2 to 3 complete sentences grammatically correct. You have anywhere between 10 and 20 minutes per quiz. It depends on the quiz. They are open note, open book quizzes, so I'm totally fine if you've got your books out and you're skimming through them to find the correct answer. That said, while you can treat the quizzes like a scavenger hunt, I greatly advise against it because you may not get the right answer. Finally, I do not allow retakes for quizzes, so whatever your score is on a quiz is the score that you get. So the best way to get a good score on those is to do the reading and make sure you understand it. And after you see the first 1 or 2 quizzes, you'll understand kind of what I'm looking for, some of the things that I might ask you about. The 2 big things, again, and I've kind of already mentioned these, are the midterm and the final. So midterm for me is a one-on-one meeting. So it's a short 15-minute meeting with me. So that is probably the one time during the quarter that you'll meet me in person. It's, again, 15 minutes, takes place in FOSS 5319. My goal there is to have a nice open dialogue with you, person to person, so we can see where you're at, what struggles you're having, and kind of try and work on specific things for the final. It's another nice way that I can assess where you're at that isn't just, something written on a page or digital page, I guess. In terms of the final, as I mentioned, your final will be a final portfolio, which will take into account revisions for each of your essays, as well as a personal reflection letter, which is a letter written to me about how you accomplished or failed to accomplish the course outcomes of English 101. And again, that reflection letter is primarily for me to assess my performance, things that I can do better, but also to get a sense of where you're at and what really worked for you. And we'll talk about that again much later in the quarter. Note on grading. So there are rubrics for each assignment. I will endeavor my best to give you examples for each of the major assignments so you know what to expect. On those assignments that you turn in, you will receive my comments, and I do try and be specific and extensive on my comments so that you have something to work with. Generally, I only comment on mechanics, spelling, grammar, that sort of thing, within the first paragraph or so, just so that I don't get bogged down in trying to correct everybody's grammar. That said, I might not mention or might not note grammatical errors later in the essay. Rather, what I'm going to try and focus on are the big sort of gaps or problems with a particular piece of writing. And if at any point any of my comments are unclear, please email me or send me or come by during office hours or something so that you can get clarification. All right, extra credit. Everybody likes extra credit. I can see people already smiling. No, I can't. This is just a video. It's a one-way thing. But I can imagine that some of you are nodding. Extra credit is very simple, and there's a specific reason that I assign the extra credit that I assign. So you can receive extra credit 4 times during the quarter. Each time you go, you can earn a maximum of 2.5 points. What you will need to do in order to get those points is go to the Writing and Learning Center, which is in the library, room 4302, visit with one of the tutors there. It's drop-in tutoring. It's about half an hour long. Work on some assignment from our class, and when you're done, you'll submit a short reflection on that experience. 150 to 300 words, something like that. Good, bad, or indifferent. So it doesn't matter to me whether or not you had a terrible experience or a good experience. Well, it does matter to me, but for sake of points, it doesn't matter if it was a terrible experience. Hopefully that's clear. I want you to be honest. It must be an assignment for the class. I don't need any other evidence. If you really wanted to BS me and say that you went when you didn't, that's your prerogative. There are deadlines for those, so be aware that it's not available all quarter long. And again, as I said, there's a specific reason I do my extra credit this way, and it's because I want you to get in the habit of going and seeking out those campus resources that are available to you when you need them, and I want you to get in the habit of going back and using them. More often than not, students say, I really wish that I would have gone to the Writing and Learning Center earlier. So even though 2.5 points may not seem like a lot, that's 10 points over the course of the quarter if you go all 4 times. And the added bonus is your writing gets better and stronger each time you visit. Okay, the obligatory note on plagiarism. Just don't. Plagiarism is a serious offense. It is literary theft, right? It's taking credit for somebody else's ideas. So I don't, again, if I was being pessimistic, I would assume that people were out there doing this plagiarism intentionally, but I know that perhaps the reality is some of you engage in plagiarism accidentally or unintentionally, and you don't mean to, it's just you don't know how to avoid it. For each major assignment, and perhaps for some minor ones, I run about 3 students randomly through my plagiarism checker, which is Qtext. So it's Quetext, and you can access it on your end and use it freely. I have a subscription, so there are a couple more functions that I can use. What you can see on this slide is an example of a student who plagiarized. So what I get in my little report box is the percentage at the top there, which is how closely what a student wrote is, how closely that is matched to another source on the internet. What I get beneath that is the URL or the web address of that original piece of writing and the highlighted text of what is similar. Now, if I'm really curious, I can actually go ahead and check that source and go and read it and compare it side by side to your work. Granted, if it says, you said, people who pollute are jerks, and somebody else on the internet said that, I'm going to say that's probably not plagiarism. You probably didn't steal that idea. It just so happens that the wording is similar. However, when it becomes something like my example here, which is an actual student example, if it is this close, then what I will do in the comments section on your assignment is I will just post the URL and say, this statement is 82% similar to something found at gradesaver.com. We will discuss plagiarism later in the quarter, so you know what it is and how to avoid it. In the meantime, do know that I do choose 3 assignments at random, or 3 students per assignment to run through my plagiarism checker. It will hurt you. It could result in a loss of points or a 0. or more serious ramifications. But before you panic on that, wait until we do the presentation on plagiarism. And if you're still uncertain after that, come and talk to me, or go to the library and talk to a librarian, or go to the Writing and Learning Center and make sure that you understand the ramifications of plagiarism and how to avoid it. Okay, just a couple more things to do here. So, the default format or style guide for English 101 and English 102 is MLA, which stands for Modern Language Association. And the idea is to create a uniform structure to everybody's paper. It includes things like the header, the spacing, the margins, page numbers, in-text citations, and works cited. If you know what MLA is, great. You can just move on with your life, and these couple assignments will be really straightforward and lots of easy points. If you've never heard of this before, don't worry, it's really easy to understand, and it's just a template that you can follow. The reasons that we use it, again, are for uniformity, and the reason that I'm kind of nitpicky about it is that it has to do with attention to detail, which, regardless of what you want to do, major-wise or career-wise, attention to detail is something that will benefit you. I've got some basic rules to write, for writing here that I'm going to go over really quickly. I know that, especially as a student, I had teachers who I had no idea what my English professor was thinking, what they liked or didn't like, because they never told me. And you kind of have to figure those things out the hard way. So what I figured is I would come up with all of the things that students do that I really think are hallmarks of not so great writing, and following these should be to your benefit. So number one is don't try and write a hook. So since elementary school you've been told write a hook, write a grabber. You really don't need to. In my opinion, hooks generally come across like bad pickup lines. Students use quotes or they use rhetorical questions, and really you should trust your own writing and just get into the heart of what you want to write about. Don't make your thesis statement a question. I know that sounds silly, but somebody will do it this quarter. Your thesis statement is a statement, not a thesis question. Don't use the phrase, this paper will investigate or this paper will explore. Just, again, trust yourself to go into it and tell me, more directly. Don't overuse rhetorical questions. They tend to be a sign of uncertainty or weak writing and come off as a little bit of, in my opinion, as amateurish. Again, these are my preferences, but I'm grading the papers, so at least you know what they are. Don't start your conclusion in conclusion or in summary. It's your final paragraph. I know it's your conclusion. One thing that you can do is type that in conclusion, and before you turn it into me, just delete it and you'll be fine. Don't use Wikipedia as a source. That won't be a big deal in this class because we won't be doing a whole lot of research. It'll be something you'll go over more in English 102. At the same time, for something like The Handmaid's Tale, do avoid the temptation to go to SparkNotes or GradeSaver or any of those other sites. It's not that they're necessarily inaccurate, but I want you to get the most out of this as far as your critical thinking skills go. So I want you to come up with thoughts that are your own, right? And you are perfectly capable of reading these texts and interpreting them. It may be a little bit tough. It may stretch your brain a little bit, but that's good. That's why we're here. Don't include first-person pronouns like I or me without good reason. Of course, with our first essay, the personal narrative, that won't be an issue. You will necessarily have to include those things. Don't forget to run a spelling and grammar check, and at the same time, don't over-rely on those things, or spelling grammar check can throw you under the bus. They can replace a word like influential with affluential, two completely different words with two completely different meanings. Do limit your use of adverbs such as really and very. We had a really good time is not much different to a reader than we had a good time, right? That's kind of that show versus tell thing that us English professor types like to hammer at you for. Avoid using etc. in a list. I find that when students use etc., they overuse it and it kind of comes across as lazy. Do avoid the temptation to use the thesaurus function. Oftentimes the word that you choose is not an exact synonym. And there's a couple reasons that students tend to use the thesaurus function. One, they feel like they need a $5 word to impress me. It won't necessarily impress me if you use a $5 word wrong. The other reason that students use it is they feel like they're being repetitive, and if that's the case, it's probably better to look at the sentence structure than to look at the word choice. On that note, if you're still not convinced, think about the synonyms for the word said. John said he would come to dinner. John whispered he would come to dinner. John shouted that he would come to dinner. John hissed that he would come to dinner. All of those words are synonyms, but they totally change the meaning of the sentence. So use the word that you're most comfortable with, that is the most precise, and you should be in good shape. Do avoid beginning or ending a paragraph with a quotation. It is a big pet peeve of mine. We'll go over it more again as we get into evidence, so with the Handmaid's Tale literary analysis essay. And then do avoid slang and cliches like the plague. They are generally weak writing. You can do better. They tend to be a little bit of something that people fall back on because they don't really know what they want to say. Okay, so you have 2 assignments that will be due on the first day of class. The first is the Mla Format Assignment. This is for those of you that either kind of know MLA and aren't sure, or those of you that have no idea what it is. So what I want you to do, it's a 5-point assignment. You are going to type in about 1 page your previous experience in an English class. What was the last English class you took? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What do you hope to get out of English 101? At the same time, I want you to have the correct header. So in the upper left-hand corner of your page, you will have your name, your professor's name, Professor Overall. You will have the course, English 101, and the date, which should be formatted day, month, year. So September 26th, 2018, or whatever date it is. Underneath that, you'll center the title. Mla format exercise would work fine for our purposes for this first assignment. You'll indent that first paragraph. You'll go ahead and type everything out. At the bottom, you'll center your works cited bit, and you will include the correct MLA 8 citation for the 2 course textbooks, so for Writing with Style and for The Handmaid's Tale. As a side note, you do not need to cite those works in your paper. It is only for exercise purposes, so that I know that you at least are kind of starting to get the idea of how to format those citations. My hint to you, if you are not sure, is to go to PurdueOwl, PurdueOwl.com, or it might be .edu, I'll put a note below, and see how they suggest formatting it. In general, it's author's last name, author's first name, the title of the book in italics, not in quotation marks, the publisher, and the year. And that's all that you need at the bottom. And one last thing that you'll need to remember, maybe 2 last things that you'll need to remember about this assignment. The entire thing should be double spaced and in Times New Roman 12-point font, all that business. And your last name and the page number should appear in the upper right-hand corner. Even if you're only writing 1 page for this assignment, please do include that. All right, and just last things here, there are plenty of resources on campus for you to use. This is not an exhaustive list. There is the Writing and Learning Center, there's academic coaching, you have office hours, Veterans Affairs, Student Services, Title IX stuff, anything that you need. And if you feel like there must be some sort of resource on campus that you're not sure how to find, let me know. I'll try and direct you to it. Otherwise, email me with questions, and I'll look forward to at least quote-unquote meeting you through Canvas. All right, have a good day. Looking forward to the quarter.